And today we're going to be doing a 2024 US Senate prediction. In the last video, we made a presidential prediction which had Donald Trump winning with 272 electoral college votes. He flipped the states of Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia in our prediction while holding on to North Carolina, giving him 270 and thus the White House. Will Democrats be able to hold up against the Trump administration? Will they be able to hold on to Senate majority? Or will Republicans take the Senate? So, starting off with the safe Democratic states: Washington, California, New Mexico, Hawaii, Virginia, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, and Delaware. The state of Maine and New York are also safe. There are safe Republican states are North Dakota, uh, Wyoming, Utah, Nebraska's special election, Mississippi, Tennessee, Missouri, Indiana, and West Virginia, which is a flip for the Republicans. They will flip that seat, edging one seat closer to control of the US Senate. In the likely Republican column will be the state of Florida, where Rick Scott will hold his seat by a comfortable margin in a Republican trending state due to the big shift in Miami-Dade County and across the state with Hispanic voters. Texas, while trending blue, and there are some worrying signs for Ted Cruz, and he is starting to uh, see a bit of a drop off in the polls. He still leads the aggregate by about 4%, and thus I give that a lean Republican category. For the lean Democratic category, sorry, the likely Democratic category is Nevada, where Sam Brown trails Rosen by about 10% in the aggregate, and in Arizona, where Kari Lake is running a sham campaign, really, and the Arizona Republicans are really struggling to get going there. And it will probably be a 6 or 7 point loss for Kari Lake, which is a huge drop off from a 0.3% loss to a probably a stronger candidate in Katie Hobbs. So, to the likely Democratic states, we also have the state of Minnesota, uh, the state of uh, Maryland with Larry Hogan. He is the former governor there, and he was a very popular governor. He is performing within 10 in most polls, but I don't, and he is getting the fourth most funding of any Republican senator. But the demographics there and the party registration are just too hard for him to overcome in a presidential year where Kamala Harris is going to win by about 30% in the state. So it's really difficult for for Hogan to overcome the Trump deficit there. In the state of Montana, Tim Shea will beat John Tester by a decent margin, possibly by about 2.5%, 3%. Uh, John Tester has run a decent campaign, but again, it's very difficult for him to outrun the 20 points that Kamala will probably lose by uh, to Donald, and that's simply why he cannot win in a presidential year. He did win in 2012, I believe, but 2018 was a smaller margin, and that was in the midterm year. And I think it's becoming ever pretty clearly that he's losing most polls by even 5% to 8% now. So I think John Tester is going to lose his seat, which is a second flip to the Republican Party. Nebraska's Senate seat is a difficult and complicated one. The polls have the independent Osborne winning the state. That's the aggregate, but there is no Democratic candidate. But Nebraska is a safe Republican state. Trump's going to win it by about 20%, and uh, we have seen races like this where the polls say one thing for an independent in a safe state, and it just doesn't go that way. We've seen, in Kansas where Democrats do end up winning the state, or Mississippi with Tate Reeves versus Brandon Presley, where it was actually close. But for this, in a presidential year, Trump's come out with an endorsement just recently on the airwaves. So I think it is clear that Republicans will keep that seat thus taking control of the United States Senate, with just the Rust Belt states to be put in. So Ohio is the next state, and I'm putting that into the tilt Republican category. Sherrod Brown is the incumbent there. He is an overperformer, but Ohio is a right trending state. White uneducated voters are going to trend to Donald Trump, and thus will also go to Bernie Moreno. It's very difficult to overcome 9 or 10%, which is looking more apparently like it's going to be in the state of Ohio for Donald Trump, and that is a big margin to overcome, especially in a presidential year, which is why I think Sherrod Brown's time in the U.S. Senate is unfortunately for him up. Wisconsin, it's clear that the margin is narrowing, but I do think Tammy Baldwin will keep her seat for another 6 years at the moment. There is, you know, it's a state where polls are wildly inaccurate in basically every election. They don't always lean one way. In 2022, they said Ron Johnson would win by 3%. He won by 1%. And Evers would lose by about 3%. He won by 3%. So there's a pretty drastic difference there. But it is a right trending state. It is a Republican trending state. It's got very, very positive signs for Republicans. But for now, I'm going to put in the lean Democratic category just because I think that Trump's not going to win it by a huge margin, and I think he will outrun the Republican nominee there by a couple points. Pennsylvania, McCormick is running a phenomenal campaign. It is touching all the right issues. He won the debate against Casey, I believe, quite convincingly as well. But as we've seen, Pennsylvania is a really tough state to predict. I think Donald Trump will lose the state by the barest of margins, but that could, the next 20 days change. McCormick is chasing down Casey. The margin was 10% 2 months ago. It's probably less than 4 now. McCormick is doing a very good job at tying Casey to Kamala Harris, to Joe Biden, to the problems that America and especially Pennsylvania economy is a very big issue, and abortion is a surprisingly big issue in Pennsylvania, which we saw in the 2022 elections, where Mastriano, who was a radical on abortion, lost by quite a large margin, and so did Dr. Oz, who was a more moderate candidate. So for now, I'm going to put it into the lean Democratic category, but it really could go either way. Michigan, it is a close race. It is a absolutely close race. I believe that the race for the Senate will be closer than the race for president. I believe that Mike Rogers is running a good campaign. I didn't believe he would, but I think he is. He's got experience. He's running I believe, a good campaign at the moment. He's within 3 in the aggregate, but Michigan is a tough state to poll, and it normally does favor Republicans. But we saw Tuda Dixon getting within 5 in the aggregate, but again, she lost by a big margin, probably because of abortion. She was quite conservative on that issue. So for now, I'm going to put Michigan into the tilt Democratic category, but it is absolutely a dead heat almost in the state of Michigan. So that is my prediction for now. I haven't gone as much into the details of why I think every state will go the way it does, as I did in the presidential election, to keep this one short. But that's about it. Republicans take the Senate 52-48. They have a governing majority. Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, though, more moderate Republicans, could get in the way. But that is that for this video. So thank you very much, and see you next time.